Ahsoka Season 1. This will be the full spoiler review. I have a review up on my blog, soundedbettermyhead.com. There's a few spoilers in there. It's kind of hard to keep some of the stuff out of there. I didn't go too crazy with spoilers, but there are some. So if you'd rather check that one out and see the review with less spoilers, whatever, that's cool. I have given this season a 3 out of 5. I think everyone's pointed this out. The show was basically like as if Star Wars Rebels got a new season, it was live action. So I think the more you enjoyed Star Wars Rebels, the more you're gonna like Ahsoka. And I dug Rebels. I watched all the episodes, so I felt I caught all the payoffs and everything they're trying to set up. So I think I graded Ahsoka higher than other people might grade it. I think like I said, depends on how you feel about the Star Wars shows. If you've ever watched the other Star Wars shows, like you might not give a shit like who any of these characters are because you don't know who they are. So I could see some people not getting a kick out of it. My biggest concern about the show was that we know that at some point there's going to be a movie that's supposed to be tying into all the Mandoverse characters, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and whoever else they want to throw in there. And it makes sense that Thrawn would be the main bad guy of this. So I was worried that the show would end in a way that it'd basically be you could tell they were leaving a lot to be picked up at a later date. And the way this show was moving relatively slowly with the plot, I mean, the plot's not much different than you kind of pick up from like the trailers. It's like Ahsoka's looking for Ezra, the bad guys are looking for Thrawn. Ahsoka's more worried about stopping Thrawn than anything, but they're both trying to do the same place for different reasons. It's just who gets there first, and then it just really takes. I think there's only like 2 or 3 episodes left before they even get to like where Thrawn's at. So it's like again, my fear is that they were going to get there, and there wouldn't be a strong enough payoff, and that's more or less what happened. It was the kind of ending where you'd either be like, oh, that was pretty cool, let's see how they get out of this next week, and you wouldn't realize it was not another episode, or it would have been great if it ends and it's like, okay, to be continued in Ahsoka Season 2, or just to be continued in The Mandalorian, but there's no clear thing where you're going to see the story wrapped up. It just kind of ends, and it's not so much a cliffhanger, but it was kind of like, I don't even want to call it anticlimactic. It's just like you're telling a story, then it's like you kind of stop in the middle of it, basically, and audience doesn't know when the story's going to finish. And then there's a lot of side plots, a lot of stuff really dealt with like just how lame the New Republic is, and when we got bits and pieces of it already in The Mandalorian, and we've seen it in some other spots, and it's like it's really just 5 years in after warring. They tried to take the Empire down for like 20 years. They finally took over and start a new fresh republic, and they put the biggest idiots in charge. Like these guys, it's a miracle they lasted as long as they did. Like I was feeling like the First Order could have just kicked these guys to the curb like pretty quickly. Somehow they made it like another 25 years before the wheels finally completely fell off the cart there. But like I said, it was interesting setting up the New Republic to fail, but I just thought it was, God, it's kind of heavy-handed how bad these guys were. So like I said, without the main plot being anything that fantastic, the show has to focus on the character arcs, and on paper, I think a lot of them sound really good. I think in execution, they're not quite there. A lot of people complain how Ahsoka previously in her live action appearances has been like just real gloomy and real like just. It's not as like the Ahsoka they remember from the cartoon. A lot of people were waiting for her to become Ahsoka the White, and that was gonna be like her turning point. And it was a good arc. Her stuff with Anakin, I thought was really well done. But I was not that impressed with the new Ahsoka the White. She was definitely more laid back and a little bit more like she definitely there was a weight lifted off of her character, which was fine. But just I didn't feel like there was that big of an improvement to like she's that much better, that much cooler now that she's Ahsoka the White. She's a little bit happier now. She's a little more content. She didn't suddenly get a bit more powerful or better at something. And I did like like I said, I did like I thought the Anakin stuff worked well, and I thought it worked really well for what happens after Vader. Like, we know he redeemed himself. We know he was a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi. Now we see that, he really did redeem himself. He's trying to give back to his apprentice, but it's like you still see that Darth Vader is always a part of him. Like, he's not ignoring that. It's always a part of him, but he's moving on. I just thought it was a nice twist to like the character, small amount that he was in the season. Sabine's stuff was okay. He said it was a little weird to suddenly be like, oh yeah, she was training to be a Jedi, and she's always had some Force potential all along, just very minimal. He said her arc was really about not only trying to become a Jedi, but looking for Ezra, but they never really got into why she was trying to find Ezra. Like, we know it's her friend, but she could have used one good speech about like how much Ezra meant to her, especially for audience members that have not watched anything from Rebels, just to kind of get a feeling how close they were. The best they did was a little video he left her about, oh yeah, they're like her sister to me, but that's his words, not hers. But I said it was nice. She had her arc. She found Ezra. She did the Jedi thing, and it was fine. But just didn't. Even when she finally used the Force, it wasn't that much of a pump your fist moment. It's kind of like, okay, there it is. Like, I don't know. It didn't do it for me. It didn't really impress me that much. It was very nice to have Hera on the show, especially, like I said, since it does work like a Rebel spinoff. But they didn't have a ton for her to do, which is actually fine. I'd be fine with just her being there a little bit, helping out, especially once they had to leave the galaxy. But they had to put her back in all this weird political mumbo jumbo, which, like I said, I thought that stuff was so. Nice to see Jason pop up. They never really got too into where he would end up. Will he be a Jedi at some point? But that's fine. He's still a kid. Ezra himself, when he pops up, he just comes in so late. You really didn't get to see him go off that much. It's like he didn't even use his lightsaber in his first action sequence. And the second one was fine. He didn't really look like seemed like he should have been more of a badass by this point. Like, years later, how much his skill should have improved, and it's like you really didn't see that. He just felt like he was just out of the loop on all this. It's like they found him, and it wasn't like you never even see a scene where they fill him in on what's happening right now. It's like Thrawn's doing this, we got to stop him. He's just kind of like, all right, I'm just here for the ride, basically. And it just felt like he's kind of removed, from the plot, which I thought like hurt a little bit. That's it really for like the main good guys. As far as you go to the bad guys, I think a lot of them started off strong, and then it's just like, then kind of nothing. Like Morgan Elsbeth, she got her little glow up. She's like, oh yeah, she's actually a Night Sister. She's using Night Sister magic. And then especially once they got the Thrawn, she just got kind of kicked to the curb. And then they tried to kind of give her like this level up at the end, which didn't really feel like she got that much more powerful. She just got like a halfway cool sword, and then she got taken out. Then they had Merrick, who had a lot of potential. There was some crazy fan theories about who Merrick was, but it seemed like this guy was an Inquisitor at some point. It seemed like there could be some cool backstory to him. And he barely says anything, and then he ends up getting killed relatively early on. And then there was a little bit of mystery, like when he died, the green mist came out, and he seemed to like just deflate. But what was that? Like, they never got brought up. It was not even mentioned on screen. It's just something like the audience kind of, if you're really paying attention, catch. So like, I don't know. He just seemed cool, and then they just did nothing with it. Same thing for Shin. You get this dark Jedi apprentice, or whatever you want to call her. No idea what she wanted. Never sure what her motivations were, what her goals were. She was just kind of there, like kind of backing her master up. Like I said, they never really got into her. She just kind of looked cool. Thrawn was Thrawn. He's about what you would expect for him. Yeah, he really needed, I think, a strong moment to convince the audience, like, okay, this dude you don't want to mess with because he'll outmaneuver you. And he got a little bit of it because he did succeed in the end, but it didn't feel like it was a massive win. Like, now we're in trouble. It's like, okay, he's back. Now what? He's got to rally the troops. What's in these boxes? They got all these boxes they loaded up. Are they corpses? Are they Night Sister corpses? Stormtroopers? Like, what are they? What's in these boxes that should scare us? That Thrawn's back with these boxes, and we didn't get that, and I think that hurt. His, could have been his big defining moment. But overall, I think the most interesting character on the show was Balin. He's like a former Jedi. He's doing bad guy stuff, but he's still got this code of honor, and he's like, he feels like he's kind of doing things for the right reason, like almost like kind of like if you watch the Tales from the Jedi, like when you start seeing Dooku sliding towards the dark path, it's like kind of like that in a way, but it was pretty interesting. It's a really like, what is this guy up to? Because it doesn't seem like he's necessarily trying to be a villain. There's these little tantalizing hints to what he might be up to, and then his ending again is just like, oh, I found there's some Mortis God statues. Where's he going from here? We don't know. And unfortunately, the actor Ray Stevenson passed away before the show was released, so anything going forward with him is going to have to be drastically changed, whether they recast or they completely. I don't know where you go with this, and I said we don't even know where the storyline is going to continue at this point. But his stuff was like the most interesting story, and just the way he talked, he was sad about the day, some of the Jedi days of being over, and sad about having to kill another Jedi. Like it's not what he really wanted out of life, but it was just the hand he was being dealt. The show, I thought, looked pretty solid. I thought the visuals looked pretty cool. There was some good cinematography. There was a lot of stuff that just the sense of scale, how big the Fergo will, how big a Star Destroyer is parked over something. Some really cool stuff that gave you a sense of scope. And I thought the alien worlds looked pretty cool. The monsters looked pretty good. Like the dogs that they're riding, their mounts, whatever, the hounds, I thought looked cool. Overall, the CG was pretty solid. There was some so-so stuff, especially with the little pods they're riding with for the aliens on up. I can't think of the on Peridia. Some of the background looked kind of like it just looked like a video game background, but it was passable. You're supposed to be watching them talking, not totally paying attention to the background. And there was a couple other wonky shots, but overall I thought the effects looked really good. Not quite movie quality, but up there at times. And I think that's really it for the show itself. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I was worried that they were just gonna end it fairly abruptly, and they did. And I said it'd be nice to know what was coming next if we don't. Maybe I know the Skeleton Crew show might come out this year. It does take place around the same time, so maybe somehow that stuff will be referenced. But I don't think it'll be enough to really be too satisfying. But I think that's it. That's all I gotta say about the main show overall. I got some notes, so glance through, see if there's anything out here that I think is worth mentioning. Probably a million Easter eggs that I caught and a bunch that I didn't catch, but so actually a small thing right off the bat. I did like that they did an opening crawl. A little weird they called Ahsoka a Jedi Knight, because if you want to get technical, she got kicked out as a Padawan, and on top of that, she never went back, and she's, last time somebody called her Jedi, she's like, I'm no Jedi. So it was a little weird, but whatever. It got the point across. I thought that explosion early on looked ridiculous. Like the assassin droids were after Ahsoka, they detonate, and they took out half the planet almost. It looked like insanely powerful. You'd think that these things would blow up half the time anytime you killed one of them. Thought the Loth Cat looked cool. Really cool seeing Lothal in live action, especially seeing that the iconic bridge from all the episodes. A lot of the fight scenes weren't that great overall. I think there was a couple strong ones later, but some of the early ones were just they're there. That was weird. Sabine getting stabbed in the torso. The original trilogy seemed like people were constantly getting their hands cut off, and then after that, it seemed like people would just take the saber to the torso, and unless you're like Qui-Gon or Han Solo, you're probably fine. Nice to see him name drop Corellia. We haven't seen that since Solo. It looked completely different. So really, other than the name drop, it actually wasn't that big of a deal. Also interesting that the show talks about going to other galaxies, which is something Star Wars has never really done before. Of course, Chopper's always fun. Really enjoyed Huyang on this show. We got a little bit of on Clone Wars, but here you get to get a lot more of him, and just how sassy he kind of is. And this also seeing someone that's been around since almost the beginning of the Jedi Order. Maybe not to the beginning, but he's been around for a hell of a long time, and just seeing someone with that much history of the Jedi, in his mind, and see how he interacts in this day and age. I thought it looked kind of cheesy. That Ahsoka runs out, gets this weird spacesuit that somehow fits her perfectly, and she could even tuck her head tails into it. And then I thought her little space thing fighting on the wings of her ship looked a little corny. Probably would have looked badass on animated, but in reality it just looked kind of silly. And as a fan of, as someone who watched the original trilogy, it was nice seeing right away. You can see that they're building a massive hyperspace ring, and that means they want to put a big ship in there so it uses it to go hyperspace. So, yeah, a nice callback to like the prequel trilogy. Hu Yang doing a little hand-to-hand combat. Eventually get to episode 5, which I thought was the strongest one. Just really cool. So I love seeing the interaction between her and Anakin. Another thing I really liked about this that people that haven't seen the animated shows don't get. All you really got from Anakin in the films is him. He's brooding. He's mad that Obi-Wan's not treating him good, or he's trying to, get in Padme's pants left and right. It was nice to see that different side of him. See him as a master and teaching an apprentice and trying to be a teacher. So I'm glad that more audiences got to see that relationship. It was really cool going back in time and seeing the young Ahsoka and seeing her classic Clone Wars costumes and her old lightsabers, and that really sweet shot of Anakin walking. You see his silhouette in an explosion, and another explosion, he's the silhouette of Vader. So I thought that was well done. And so I thought actually the stuff with Hera was a little bit distracting. Like, he almost didn't need it. Like, I know they were setting up the political stuff and her eventually rescuing Ahsoka, but just the way they did it, it almost was kind of taken away from the way more interesting, dynamic between Ahsoka and Anakin. Also really cool seeing the siege of Mandalore, just real quick, seeing some of those style Mandalorians. Would have been really cool to somehow see Darth Maul in there somewhere, but whatever. That's just asking a lot. I really like the rings around the planet in Peridea, and then finding out they're actually the Purgo bones. So that was just a nice little visual. Interesting seeing Thrawn's ship and his forces all repairing their armor with apparently Night Sister fabric and gold. Which, have you ever seen those Japanese thing where if something breaks they fix a crack with gold? Because they don't want it to look like new. They want to show that it's been changed. There's a word for it, but I thought it was interesting seeing someone like Thrawn do that to fix his troopers. And they never really explained what was going on with the Night Sisters. Were they exiled there? Have they been living there the whole time for God knows how many centuries? It kind of implied they were exiled, but they never got into that. So I never knew what their motivation, why they're so loyal to Thrawn. Was it just because you could get them out of there? That needs a little bit more explaining. Cool seeing 3PO pop in. It would have been a great time to have Princess Leia actually show up on the show, but obviously it's a little weird with Carrie Fisher being dead, and it's one thing to have Mark Hamill be alive and give permission to use his likeness as a younger Luke, but it's different when Carrie Fisher really can't give her like this, and I don't know if how her daughter would even feel about them using their mom. So 3PO was a good stand-in for Leia. And it does help to kind of lay the groundwork to where you would see Leia would have to leave politics and start her own resistance movement, because it's these guys are knuckleheads and they're never going to get anything done. One really cool moment is Ezra building this lightsaber with Hu Yang, and he actually got the same emitter that Kanan used in Rebels. Right when they pointed it out, I was like, oh, that's that same emitter. And it's cool. It was just basically Kanan's backup, so Prentice gets to use part of his master's lightsaber. So I thought that was a nice moment for the characters. And the zombie stormtroopers was cool. We kind of thought it would happen. They weren't as rabid as when they would resurrect Night Sisters, but it was okay, I guess. They said that some cool stuff with Ezra, just a lot of little bits and pieces that just remind me of classic Ezra. Just him getting on the walkie-talkie, radio in that he was one of the stormtroopers, and wearing the stormtrooper disguise, and a few other odds and ends that he did. Definitely captured the character pretty well. Really kind of blew my mind that we saw the statue for at least the father and the son. We didn't see the daughter. So whatever's going on on Peridea with Baylan ties into that pretty controversial, I don't want to say controversial, but trippy, controversial episode of the Clone Wars with the whole Mortis and the gods and all that stuff. So I have no idea where this is going. They said they just kind of left you hanging. It was nice seeing Anakin kind of give a nod of approval to Ahsoka, but again, was that just the last of his involvement, or does he pop up later again as a Force ghost? If and when we get it later, I don't know. Actually, I think I kept it short this time with the notes. Probably could have found stuff to talk about for forever, but I don't want to be on here all day. But like I said, yeah, but I got the mostly spoiler-free review up on my blog of this. A little bit more coherent maybe, but not as much rambling. I got some other reviews on there. I got some comic strips on there. So if you want to go check those out, that's always cool. And like I said, that's at soundingbettermyhead.com. So thanks for watching.